corrective blend shapes can help us maintain the volume of certain body parts when they overlap each other with our rigs. And that's what we're going to talk about and how to set those up. So currently, one of the easiest ones to talk about is the elbow, because as no matter how much time I spend on weight painting, excuse me, so sorry, but whenever I go to overlap and intersect some of these objects, you know, they're not going to deform like our bodies would, right? If I was to bend this elbow into the bicep on my person, both of those fleshy parts would squash each other, right? They would push in the volume of each other and displace themselves. So that's what we're going to set up today. I'm going to show you how you set up for one side and how we can mirror it to the other side and have that being driven by our model's joints entirely instead of by these controls, which we can do either way. I like to do it by the joints, that way it works for both FK and IK. Okay, let's get into it. So first thing I want to do is set a couple keyframes. So I'm going to set keyframe at 1 on this elbow control, the FK. Then I'll go out to frame, I don't know, let's say 30, and rotate it in until I get into roughly this area, right? Where we are overlapping each other's, and then I'll set another keyframe here. So when I scrub through this animation, I can easily just reference this rather than having to actually go to the control and rotate it. Very much like we were doing when we were doing our skin weights. Okay, now I'm going to select this control. I'm going to say, we're not going to paint skin weights, sorry. We're going to make a new blend shape, much like we did with our facial expressions, right? Remember those? So we're going to go up to Windows, Animation Editor, Shape Editor. Sorry, I was just turning down the music on my system. Okay, so you know, we have our happy, our sad, and our blink, our angry, etc. We have all the facial expressions that you've built previously under an old blend shape, and that's, remember, that's on that group here, the expressions group. But this time we're going to make it specifically on the actual mesh itself. So I'm going to select the mesh, and I'm going to say, create blend shape. Let's go ahead and rename this to Corrective Blend Shapes. Or is it just Corrective Shapes? That's fine. I'll add a target. This is the character's left elbow. So I will say L_elbow. And now here's where I really want to just start messing with this geometry to get it back to you know, a reasonable place once these start overlapping. And I don't want to rely on skin weights. I just want to get in here and actually start adjusting, pushing verts, right? And just adjusting it. Whoop. Want to make sure. I also want to make sure. Wow, this soft select is very large. I also want to make sure that my symmetry is off for this. So I'm just going to start pushing some vertices. This would kind of come out. But really, first off, before I do any of this, I really want to just smooth that out so that they're not actually intersecting each other. Really easy to do with this smooth tool. So I'm going to go up there, select it, increase my radius, and don't want to go too far into everything. But there we go. Just kind of running it down this crevasse. There we go. We're deforming our arm a little bit, but I can bring that back here in just a second. And in fact, I'll just go ahead and do that now. I'll go up here to pull single vert, and if I make my brush pretty large, I can start to push and pull. Notice it's pushing and pulling both sides, so I just want to make it a little bit smaller, and very similarly to our, and then pulling these out, right? Because all of this is just coming together, and again, I just want to make sure I'm looking in both modes, 1 and 3. Yeah, nice. All of this just coming together and smushing up against itself is ultimately the idea that I'm going for. I can also, with this sculpting tool, double click it, just to make sure that the volume, just like our fall off for our soft select, is set to surface and not just surface and volume. That way I can work on this side without affecting the other side. So again, just make sure that that is set to surface. There we go. So I'm just going to reshape this other side where I've kind of like over smoothed out some of the forearm, but that's okay. Again, it's just demonstration purposes. You all can spend a lot more time on making these shapes fit your character. So here, I want to do something that I haven't really talked about yet in this video, which is look at reference, right? So I've got this up on the other monitor, and I just really want to take a look at like how this mesh deforms and hits itself. You know, my character may not be as defined with the musculature, and same thing for your simple characters. But if you have more in-depth characters that really does have muscle defined, you really want to follow as close as you can to reference. Even if you don't, you really want to follow reference a lot. That way, you're kind of not just eyeballing it, right? That's where we run into a lot of mistakes. So I'm just going to bulk up this guy's biceps real quick. And I'm doing this with this first sculpt tool, lift to surface, with a very low strength of 0.1. I could just be pushing and pulling verts if I wanted to. Okay, there we go. It's starting to get there. Let's turn this off. So here's my corrective blend shape. So you can see what it was, what it is. And again, we're just trying to avoid intersecting, but at the same time, we want to... At the same time, we want to make sure that it's like bulking up as normal. I'm going to select this whole edge loop here. And I'm going to go to Edit Mesh under my modeling toolkit. And we're going to say Edit Edge Flow. Just to get that back a little bit better to what it was. Same thing here. Largely what I'm looking at are these two vertices right here that are poking out. We can use component mode, and that's the vertices normal. Oh, it's not wanting me to edit the vertice now. Interesting. Just go back to our sculpt. There we go. I just want to smooth this out a little bit. There we go. Smooth that out a little bit. Yeah, there we go. There's also this inflate tool. Whew, strength is way too large. Let's set that from 15 to something like 0.1. And the strength on these tools largely is dictated by the scale of your scene. So if your character is really small in your scene, yeah, the tool is going to be very powerful. That's why Gene's very tiny in the overall world that he exists. There we go. So maybe just bringing that... Let's grab that pinch tool. So that's why the strength was so crazy on that one. But if your character's larger, you may need a higher strength rather than a lower strength. It's really just going to be up to kind of whatever your character is. I think I'm bulking out a little bit too much here, but just going to smooth that out. And then I'm always just kind of like going back and forth down here between what was and what is, and then I want to smooth out. Actually, let's use this relax tool. Run it over here just a couple of times. There we go. Looking pretty good. And what the relax tool, which is this third button, just as a reminder, does is it maintains the shape that you've built, but just kind of evenly distributes the edges and vertices thereof. Cool. So that's what we had. This is what we have. Again, I do want to just... Sorry for tweaking this a bit too much, over tweaking it probably. Just want to pull those out. I'll stop here though, that way I can move forward. But just pull those out so that they actually look like they're being pushed against each other, right? Cool. And then I feel like the elbow is getting too long there, so I just want to pull that crease back in a little bit as well. There we go. So that's what it was. That's what it is. Something else we could do here is focus on holding the harder shape of the elbow, which is with the these patches back here that we have for the elbow. I'm just going to select the middle ring here, get rid of that one, and I'm going to say the slide edge tool, which is under Edit Mesh, and we have the there's the Edit Edge Flow. Where's the slide edge tool? Maybe it's under Mesh Tools? Yeah, Mesh Tools, slide edge. Middle mouse click and drag. I just want to push that over. Same thing here, just kind of pushing this over. And if I go to 3, you can see what I'm doing, right? Is I'm just sliding these a little bit closer, because if they're further, we kind of get it rounded out. But if they're closer, we're holding that harder shape of an elbow. But I just want to push in this direction a little bit more. I don't need all of those edges, just these 4 really, for that middle patch, or 5, I guess I should say. And then kind of scooting them over there. That way, you know, when we turn this off and on, we're still holding that hard elbow. Okay. So let's call that done, right? Problem is, now when I scrub in my time slider, I've really messed up my original model. You can see what it's supposed to look like over here. Oof, you can see this. And if I turn off that blend shape, you know, it's what it was versus what the corrected shape is. So essentially what we're going to do is build a connection between my joint and this elbow corrective blend shape, so that I'm going to first off click uncheck edit. That way I'm no longer editing that blend shape. But I want to just make sure that I can edit this and have it turn on, right, with the topology. and or correct the topology rather with just the joint rotation. So I'm going to go up here to show. I'm going to go to skeleton. Make sure joints, turn those on. And we're going to go back to our good old buddy under the animation toolkit, key, set driven keys, set. We're going to pull up our good old set driven keys to do this. So first off, I want to load in the driven, which is over here, this mesh. And then on the right side, we have all of our inputs. If I go down here to corrective blend shapes and click that once and say load driven, there we go. I have my collective blend shapes. And would you look at that? There's the L elbow that we have created. Secondly, I want to select my elbow joint. I don't want to select my, my shoulder joint or my elbow control. I want to select the actual elbow joint. Again, this is so that it'll also work in IK. So that'll be the driver. And all I want to do is scrub forward and take a look at the rotation values. It looks like it's only rotate Y, which is good. I'll go here to the maximum value that I rotated to. I will select rotate Y. And then on the corrective blend shapes, I will select L elbow, and I will say key, because that elbow is turned on, and my rotation value is maximum. I'll go back to frame 0. I'll go to where my rotate Y is now 0 on that joint, and I'll go to my L elbow for the corrective blend shape, and turn that off, and say key. So now when I scrub through, it only activates whenever I get closer to that full rotation of the elbow. And that's the maximum amount, right? Is that right there. So if I keep going further, it's not going to keep deforming my mesh or anything, right? It's just going to stop there. Okay. The problem is, it looks like it kind of goes like we get like a chicken wing vibe here halfway through. So for me, I'll go to frame 20, which means that rotation value isn't what the full max was, which is something like a negative 114. Instead, it's like 83. But I could set another set-driven key here. So instead of the elbow being that much engaged, let's pull it back. There we go. Somewhere in there will work. And say key. So now it'll go up to that degrees, which was like negative 83. And then it'll go only to 0.397 of enabling this blend shape. And then when I go all the way to 30, that's where we get all the way to 1. And now we just got a nicer deformation happening here. Maybe even I'll go to 25 and adjust it here as well. Just a little bit key, and this is entirely up to you, right, on how. Now you can see that looks really like that mesh is like actually interacting with each other, right, rather than just relying on the skin weights. And also we're holding that hard elbow, right, which is fantastic. So that's how you can build your corrective blend shapes. Some other areas real quick that will behoove you to build some corrective blend shapes. Oops, let's get this knee control up there as well. Is the knee, right? Holding that hard knee, and then also deforming the thigh and calf so that they're hitting with each other. Also holding a nice butt pose. You know, that's a little bit droopy too much there. Maybe you just want to kind of revise that just a little bit. That's another area, 2 areas that corrective blend shapes really help out. Oh, also, some areas that really help out with the leg here. It's kind of hard. The weight paint did a decent job here with him. Not great, though. It's like, so you see we're really deforming in the hip. So I could make a corrective blend shape so that whenever the rotates, what would that be? Z comes up for the leg, we implement a corrective blend shape here. Okay. So I'm going to just reset that foot control and that knee control. And before we end this video, that's fine and dandy. We've enabled it for the left side. But nothing for our right. Let me show you how to mirror this over. So in the shape editor window, I'm going to right click that elbow and I'm going to say duplicate. And there we go. I now have an elbow target, which is doing the same thing as you can see on the model on the left arm. I'm going to turn it off for now, and I'm going to rename it to R_elbow. And I'm going to right click it and say flip target. And what flip target does is it takes the blend shape and mirrors it across to the other side. If I would have said mirror, it would have enabled both sides rather than just one. So now I've just mirrored that over. So again, I'm going to delete that, just go through that order of operations again. Select your elbow blend shape here in the shape editor, right click, duplicate. Here on the new target, just rename it to R_elbow. Right click, and we're going to say flip target. And because our characters are mirrored, you know, it enables the flip. And then I need to go through and do the same thing over here. Let's actually just get that value. So it was a negative 114. Again, for over here, I'm going to have to do a positive for rotate Y. There we go. Let me go back to 0. And I'll have to rebuild my corrective, my set-driven keys. So real quick, just a reminder, load the driver, which is the elbow joint, and the driven, which is over here. Select your mesh, go to your inputs, corrective blend shapes, and then load driven. And there's the corrective blend shapes, and I can see both the L elbow and the R elbow. So at 0, R elbow is going to be, when rotate Y is zeroed out, it's going to be off key. Then we go to 30, it's going to be on key. And I do see some deformities here that I can just go in and fix with this, right? I can turn edit on and just be like, yo, hello, what's up? What's up, gal? Why are y'all doing this? Maybe just an issue with the mirroring a little bit, but nothing too crazy. I can go in and just kind of smooth this stuff out. There we go. Turn edit off now that I'm done with that. There we go. Maybe I want to smooth the bottom out as well. Oh, need to turn edit on. There we go. There we go. Just smoothing that stuff out because it didn't mirror exactly perfectly, but that's okay. I'm not sure why, honestly. All right. We're holding that hard elbow shape over here as well. Again, about halfway through, we're getting a chicken wing effect, so I just want to set the driven key here. I can uncheck edit now. Set the driven key, so roughly right in here. Take key. Whoops. Instead of sliding that, let's slide the, whoops, timeline. There we go. And as we get closer, I think I did one at 25 too. Yeah, roughly in here. You can see where the other one was at as well. Oh, I didn't set a keyframe. Key. Yeah, corrective blend shapes. That's how you make them, and that's how you mirror them over. Hope that helps. If you need further assistance, feel free to reach out, and I'll see y'all in the class.